here with us today, and we will be doing a case study approach. For those of you that don't know me and haven't been on a call with us before, my name's Sarah Potter, and I'm the Director of Peer Genius. Welcome, Kate. A lovely photo there, lovely necklace. So the ethos of the Innovation Labs is really to benchmark your thinking and share that best practice. So with the case study approach today, hopefully you'll go away, not with sort of rose-tinted glasses, but some really good solutions to the challenges that you might be facing with your online offering as well at the moment. So housekeeping wise, everything needs to just pop it in the questions in the box just there below, so in the chat box, and we'll put those questions to our expert speakers along the way, and we invite you to those questions, so do join us. So we're going to be running for the next hour. So if I hand over to Lisa, we'll do some introductions for our expert speakers. So welcome to today's session, Lisa.
Oh, hi Sarah, thanks for having me.
No
hello everyone. So I'm Lisa and I'm the Head of People and Commercial Development at Fircroft College, which is a little adult education college just outside of Birmingham Centre. So the college is part of the Cadbury's legacy. So I assume everyone's heard of Cadbury's chocolates, and might know that the Cadburys were a very philanthropic family. They were Quakers, so they set up a number of charitable causes back in kind of around the 1900s. And the college I work at is one of those charitable causes that's still alive today. So after introductions, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But nice to see everybody on the call.
Brilliant. Thanks very much then, Lisa. And Erica Farmer, welcome. You okay?
I'm good, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, really good. Thank you so much for having me.
All the way from Devon today?
Absolutely. Sunny Devon, Costa del Devon, as we like to call it. Yeah, really pleased to be back here. Of course, I'm the founder and director of Welcome to Learning Limited. So my game is digital learning, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Brilliant. Thank you very much then, Erica. So Lisa, can you set the scene for us today? So it'd be really great, obviously you've touched on Fircroft College, so if you can give us a little bit more of an introduction and a background to the college itself. I think you seem sort of quite famous in the HR world as well at the moment, aren't you, Lisa? So you've been featured in People Management magazine. So congratulations for that article. And what I loved about you is it's very authentic. So about this case study today, it's going to be warts and all, and how Erica has helped you overcome those challenges as well for the college. So can you give us a little bit of an overview, please?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yes, yeah, for my sins, I was in People Management magazine, which was great for my LinkedIn profile. I suddenly got loads of random messages and felt like a celebrity for about a day. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really fascinating to have a look at how other businesses operate with different HR projects. And this one in particular is quite an extraordinary time for everybody. And I imagine people are having challenges now that they never expected that they would have in their own HR roles and businesses. And I think that's probably going to continue for at least the next 6 to 12 months. So yeah, I always find it really interesting to look at how other people have managed projects and tackled different challenges within organisations. So one of the things that I wanted to really talk about on the call today is what situation we were in, how we kind of reviewed and identified what we needed to support us during that situation, and then the kind of outcomes and impacts, and how Erica was able to support us during that time. So go back to March, obviously everything kicking off with coronavirus. We're, like I said, we're a small college, and the nature of our students is we have adult learners who are mainly from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we have a lot of links with referral partners like the probation service or different charities who support people that have maybe been homeless or people that have kind of mild learning difficulties. So our students are I mean, they're amazing, and what our college does is we turn their lives around. We transform people's lives, so they'll go from being, you know, homeless and a drug addict, and then they'll be at university, you know, 18 months later. So it's amazing what we do. But because of that, when we moved into lockdown and the college went online, it also makes it that much more challenging, because a normal college with normal students, you've got some quite IT savvy, you know, probably a large percentage of them have IT resources at home. You know, they're young, so they naturally, you know how Snapchat works, not like me. So to deal with them online is probably a lot easier than what we're dealing with. So some of our adult learners, I think our average age can be around 40. So, you know, the IT kind of savviness does kind of decrease somewhat when you're dealing with the types of people we have, and you know, being adults as well. So to carry on doing some of our courses online was a real challenge. Now we have lots of little short courses, but we also have this one long course which completes in about May each year, and that's the Access to University course. So we had no choice but to carry on doing some delivery online. The tutor team that we've got had really varying skills. So we had some people that were quite IT savvy and have done, you know, maybe some online delivery before. And we had some people that their IT skills were really quite basic, and more than that, their confidence was really, you know, really not there. And I suppose if you're in another organisation that isn't a college, you know, you might find this anyway with your managers, and if they've got to deliver online learning or even run an online meeting, you can have varying skills and levels of confidence. So one of the things that we identified, those were two key areas really, that we need to look at skills and we need to look at confidence for delivery, because there wouldn't be anything worse than just saying to people, right, you've got to go and deliver online now, you've got to run these virtual meetings, you know, and then being so scared to do it, and it adding to the pressure and the stress of already what's going on in the world with coronavirus. So we identified that we needed some partners to help us with this, and we were going to need a kind of multi-pronged approach. And one of those key partners, and really the main person who supported us with this, was Erica. Now, I'd worked with Erica and Sarah because we'd delivered a couple of webinars together, and I'd always been really impressed with how Erica was able to host but also do the IT side at the same time, which I think is amazing, because she's hosting
as well.
because she's hosting so naturally, and then like what you don't see is her hands must be working a million miles an hour under the desk like this, clicking all kinds of different buttons to make everything actually just work to plan. So I'd always been really impressed with that, and I knew that bringing Erica into the business was really going to support the tutors and the leaders of the organisation, you know, throughout doing this online delivery. I mean, Erica, that about sums it up, doesn't it? At the same time, you'd kind of started your business, and so you had a number of packages that you were advertising on LinkedIn, and you were starting to support a few different employers. So that's how we kind of came together to put a plan into place to resolve these issues.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, do you want me to pause there?
Yeah, so I think it would be really good to understand, like, how did you get to know what the competency level was? So how did you know what the confidence level was and that competency level was for the leaders and the tutors at the time?
So we actually had our head of curriculum retired, and our new one joined in March as the college closed. So she joined as a virtual head of curriculum leading the tutor team. So that was, I mean, it's a great question, because it was such a difficult time to try and get. It wasn't like we were working with a manager who knew all of her staff. So we did a lot of qualitative analysis. So we spoke to the tutors, we run working groups, you know, we ran sessions with them to just try and identify that. And then Erica also kind of spoke to them. I think you did some before the sessions, you did some work with them, didn't you, to kind of identify what the need was going to be, like a pre-training needs analysis.
Yeah.
And then with the leaders, we rolled it out with tutors first because that was a real priority area. And with leaders, we initially did a kind of opt-in. So we said, you know, what leaders want this, what leaders are interested. And what really worked very well was the people that had come on to the sessions enjoyed it so much that within about a week we had loads of other teams in the college, and the leaders that hadn't put their hands up at the start were coming back and going, oh, this sounds really good, we've had really good feedback, and I'd really like to now join a session. So it was, if you've ever done something on stakeholder management, which is something I'm probably going to refer back to quite a lot throughout this session, because I think managing stakeholders and buying influence is the most fundamental part of any project, without a doubt. But if you've ever done stakeholder management or change management, you find a few key people that can be change agents. So actually that was one thing that we thought was really important. So get the people who had a level of confidence, really boost that, and then they could filter that out to the rest of the organisation, get people to buy into it.
Brilliant. So just before we come to Erica, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, obviously anyone can get a Zoom account now. I got one and I was probably lethal with it, so it's a good job that I met Erica at the right time. So I can't imagine what it would have been like for me. So why was it that you felt like you needed a specialist in this? Like, did you try and navigate it yourselves with the teams? And so why was it that you felt like, actually, I'm out of my depth, or it's not quite right, that you needed to buy in a specialist?
Well, because of the nature of the students, it's really important that we engage people. So I think probably we've all done Zoom meetings or team meetings where you've just got, I mean, some of them are just dire, aren't they? And within 5 minutes you're playing on your emails or your phone and you're just thinking, God, you know, when is this going to end? Particularly, I think that quite a lot. So I think it's really important when you're delivering that you engage people and that you make it engaging, that you hear from people, that you have that variety, that you have that interaction. And I just knew that we would lose students if we didn't get it right. And because when we run meetings and when we run training sessions internally for our staff as well, that's our approach. So if we do an all staff meeting, we don't do everybody stands at the front and has their turn to kind of, you know, just talk at people. That's not how we do things anyway. We do things where we get people interacting and thinking and learning, because that's what we are, a learning organisation. So it was really important for us to recreate that as much as we could online. And we knew that somebody like Erica, like I said, I had sessions with Erica where I knew that they were interactive, you know, they engaged people from the start, people didn't get, you know, bored. We also have this thing about sociocracy, which is this concept of everybody having their voice heard. So again, it was really important that that culture that we really pride ourselves on at Fircroft translated online. And I knew Erica was somebody that could really support us with that.
Oh, brilliant. That's great then, Lisa. So Erica, it's been sort of 14 minutes and you haven't spoken, so I bet you're chomping at the bit, aren't you, to come and join us. Can you, obviously I'm really excited to see what you can do for us from an engagement and interactive point of view. So over to you, but obviously to everyone on the call today, if we're going to talk more around that stakeholder engagement, so please do put your questions for Lisa and Erica in the chat box. So over to you, Erica.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Lisa. That's very kind words that Lisa has shared today, so very appreciated. And my time with Fircroft was amazing because the teams were so engaged, so interested, and really wanted to take it to the next level. And I think that's really, you know, credit to Lisa and the management team of setting up the view of virtual learning in the right way. It's not a poor cousin, it is a qualitative, engaging delivery channel for your learning and development, and that's from a leadership perspective and again a stakeholder perspective really important to position it that it's not just, oh God, that emergency response to COVID and we have to get online and we have to get Zoom licenses, but actually really understand that it's sustainable. And I think what's reminded us of this is the announcement that started yesterday around the groups again and the rule of 6 and all these things that are happening as well. So I think it's really challenged people's thinking and mindset around this. But yeah, we did some amazing stuff with the team. You know, we were running some modules throughout the tutor team that they were loving it, they were grasping it, they were applying it, and they were using it particularly with some of their hardest to help learners as well. So that was what's so rewarding from that perspective. And we had a suite of support. So we had some of the guys, as Lisa's mentioned, that were struggling a little bit, you know, wanted to have more practice on using Zoom as a tool and using interaction. And then we had some of the team where we're actually doing a really advanced session with them next Monday, which I call Virtual Impact Dialing It Up. So this is for guys that have been delivering online for the last couple of months, but now want to take it to the next level. So we've got another level of competency that we're driving for those guys to get to as well. But, you know, online learning, virtual classroom isn't webinar. it isn't passive, it isn't sitting back, it isn't just listening, it's doing. So I've got something for you guys to do today, which you'd probably expect, and I'm going to share with you something in a minute called Jamboard, which is an interactive rotational whiteboard that you can use for lots of different reasons. HR people typically love this tool, so I'm hoping that you guys are going to love it as well. Got a question. How did you go about engaging the students with limited IT knowledge on virtual courses, and will you continue this delivery long term? Is that a question for me, Kate? Or is that a question for Lisa?
The long term bit might be Lisa, so yeah, a bit of both. So I think how did you go about engaging would be you, Erica, then if it's going to continue would be Lisa.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Great question. So I think, you know, initial conversations with the head of curriculum and some of the team to really understand the current capability level was important, and very quickly realised that there was, like most organisations, a spectrum of confidence that Lisa talked about, but also that capability online. You know, I had some people that could just about log into Zoom and share a screen, and we had some guys that had been doing it for a long time. So it was really working with the groups, understanding what their knowledge is. But the sessions that I run are more around the engagement and the good practice of L&D online, as opposed to using the tools and functionality. The tools and functionality are there to be used, but concepts around how the brain learns best online, how you can increase knowledge and recall by up to 65% through your design methodology, how you need to be engaging every 3 to 5 minutes. In a workshop in person, that's typically every 15 to 20 minutes. So understanding how time sits very differently in the online space was particularly the types of sessions we took the guys through. So from that perspective, it was new to everybody. We just had a spectrum of capability when it came to actually using the online tools, and the confidence of layering on the technology alongside those trainer facilitation skills that the guys already had. You know, they were always delivering learning and they were experts in that space. It was the confidence, but then the tech that sat on top of that as well.
Yeah, and that just blew my mind just when you first told me back in March that was the timescales. Like, oh my goodness, it's just crazy. Then I know that I've sort of got Zoom fatigue as well now, because we're just so back to back as well. And like you said, you can be so passive because it's online, but that's not good either. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what you've got to offer today from an interactive point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to catch up on the long-term bit, Lisa, and then we'll go to the Jamboard?
Yeah. I mean, just to complement what you've said as well, I think the interaction is probably one of the most important things for me. Like I said, particularly when I'm on a Zoom meeting, you know, a Zoom workshop of some sort, you know, it's the interaction that keeps people engaged. I was just going to show a little example, actually. Hopefully this won't steal your thunder with what's coming, Erica. But I was just going to show you an example of a slide for when I delivered inclusive leadership. So we did inclusive leadership training online for Irwin Mitchell, which is our solicitors. And Michael and I did it because we weren't like Erica and able to host and do the IT bit at the same time. We needed two of us, which just shows how good Erica is. But I'm going to share my screen just very quickly. So can everybody see that slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was just an example of immediately when we delivered the workshop. We did a few of them, and on the first one we realised that we lost a few people in the first 5 minutes. So immediately when we did it for Owen Mitchell, we went straight in with, right, this is inclusive leadership. So straight away, can you annotate onto this target how included you feel in the organisation? And so instantly people are using the stamp, which I can show you. Is here. People were using the stamp to say how included they felt in the organisation, and little things like that. I won't labour the point because I know Erica's going to do some more, but little things like that were so important to keep that engagement going. In terms of long term, yes, we're using this as an opportunity to spread our mission a lot further than we've been able to in the past, but we are residential, so it's a fine balance between staying true to being residential but also trying to spread our mission a lot wider and help disadvantaged adults.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks, Erica. Over to you.
Hold that thought as well about the long term, because I want to come back to you about the impact and how you're measuring that as well. Right. Okay, brilliant. Then Erica.
So yeah, so Zoom offers a lot of functionality as is, and you guys have probably been using Zoom throughout lockdown, sharing screen, chat box, you know, you've got participants box, but even, you know, there's little things like, so if you just wobble your mouse for me, it wakes up, and this is what I'm going to ask everybody to do, it wakes up the toolbar at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see there you've got just to the right of shared screen, which is the little green interaction, you've got a little button that says reactions. If you click on the reactions button, it says it gives you lots of different things like a heart or a clap. Lee's got that already. Absolutely. Sarah's got it. Thumbs up. You know, just little things where you can just do a little interaction, a little reaction, and you can use reactions for things like polling. So you could say, you know, ask a question, how are we feeling today, like Lisa did on the slide, or, you know, give me a thumbs up for this answer, give me a thumbs down for that answer, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of inbuilt functionality when it comes to Zoom already, which we already know. But what we're starting to explore now is more external functionality. So things like rotational whiteboards, which is what I'm going to share with you now. So everybody can access something called Jamboard, which is what I'm going to share on the screen with you. Jamboard is part of the Google suite, and all you can do is just type in Jamboard into Google and it takes you to this functionality. It's completely free, and Jamboard is a fantastic interactive whiteboard. So what I've done is I've created this whiteboard, and you'll see at the top of the slide, we're on slide 1 of 8, and I've created 8 whiteboards. And what we do with this is there's lots of different ways to use Jamboard. So you can create sticky notes, you can sort, you can prioritize, you can put emojis in, you can add graphics, you can collaborate with teams globally, you can drag and drop pictures, you can gain feedback. You know, the only limitation with these kind of tools is your own creativity and your own imagination. So, you know, things like pictures of flip charts or project timelines, using sticky notes just to communicate with stakeholders or teams, remote teams, that's the big thing at the moment. How do we engage? How do we have that water cooler conversation that we're missing from the office? So Jamboard's a really nice way that you can interact with virtual teams, interact with stakeholders, and just use something that's completely free of charge. And actually, you know, things like having nice quotes, getting to know people. If you've onboarded people during lockdown and they've not managed to come into the office yet, it's another tool that you could use just to get people excited, have something visual, and allow people to communicate and share and collaborate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to this Jamboard to have a go. So in the chat option, in the chat box, so just pop your mouse on chat and wake up your chat, just click on the chat box, click on that link that I've just popped in the chat, and that will take you to that Jamboard that I've just shared with you on the screen right now. I can see people popping in now. You come in as a little avatar, interestingly, so you won't have your picture or your photo or your name or anything. And just move through the Jamboards, have a click on the sticky notes. You've got an annotation tool on the left-hand side of all of the Jamboards. You can draw, you can move things around, you can add more sticky notes. If you're really clever, bring up something like Google Images or Unsplash or Pexels, drag more graphics onto the Jamboard as well. So again, you can, there we go, we've got people starting to write, people starting to collaborate. It's just a really fantastic tool to be able to engage people in a different way. So yeah, lots of going on. We've got people writing here. We've got circles. Don't be afraid to put on more sticky notes, write notes to each other. Give me your thoughts of the Jamboard by popping up a sticky note and just typing a couple of words on there. Just let people have a go at that now. It's just such a fantastic tool to use. It takes you away from the same old Zoom functionality, Teams functionality. You might be using Google Classroom. You might be using Adobe Connect or something like that. Again, this can be used with any of those virtual platforms because it's separate to the function that you've got within your virtual platform. Does this sometimes distract from the content or learning, somebody's put? That's a great question. You have to be really clear in terms of the purpose of the Jamboard. So the way this could work really nicely is you can put people into breakout rooms, or you can pair them up into a separate virtual room, and you can allocate them a Jamboard. and you can write the question at the top of the Jamboard, have them have a discussion around that question, and then they can feed back their thoughts on the sticky notes. So it's really about setting it up in the right way. What you can also do is you can set up several Jamboards, keep people in breakout rooms, but they can rotate around the Jamboards. So you might have question 1 on Jamboard 1, allocate 5 minutes to that, and then they move on to Jamboard 2, and then they do the next exercise or activity. And you can have up to 20 Jamboards. So it's very much in terms of how you set it up, how you contract, just like you would do with any online collaboration, online learning exercise. Lots of people are saying this is excellent fun, it's very good, love it, how fantastic. Oh, I love that little graphic that's come on, don't compare yourself to others, everybody has their own role to play. Absolutely. So again, this stuff here is really up to you to have a play around. And like I said, you just stick Jamboard into Google and a blank screen will come up and it will show you Jamboard. You just click add, and that's where you can just start building your Jamboards. And it isn't just an L&D thing, project plans, global collaboration, stakeholder feedback, team engagement in particular, people are using these functionalities. It's just really fantastic stuff. Do scroll through the Jamboards if you haven't had a chance to yet. You'll see right towards the end, Jamboard 6, you've got a little word search. So have a go at the word search if you haven't had a chance to scroll through that far yet.
Brilliant, Erica. And everything that we put on there, does it save as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got an option where when we finish creating what we've created on the Jamboard, we can download it and we can save it as a PDF. So if there's certain things that you've created that you want to share with the group afterwards, happy days, you can email that out afterwards, or if you're still on Zoom, through the file transfer functionality, you can drag the PDF into chat and share that with the group online as well. So, you can explore it and do huge amounts of things with it, really. I love a Jamboard, as you can tell.
I've never heard of it before, so is it fairly sort of new, or am I just out of touch?
I think it's been a part of the Google suite for some time, really, but like anything, we haven't really had our hand forced to use this stuff until perhaps the last couple of months, right, with COVID and stuff. And the more creative you can be, there's lots of other external things that you can use. So if you Google things like interactive whiteboards, actually Google will come up with a list of probably 15 different interactive whiteboards that you could use, each doing something slightly different. You've got something called Poll Everywhere, or you've got Mentimeter, which are, again, external websites where you can build polls, word clouds, just lots of different free activities which will change the engagement and the interaction and allow people to kind of really start to move that knowledge from the short-term memory into the long-term memory, because not only are they hearing it, they're doing something with it. Therefore, they're more likely to apply it when they go back into the workplace. That's another great thing about online learning as well. If we remember the days of face-to-face, I can just about remember them. You'd sit in a classroom all day, which potentially doesn't work for every learner anyway. And then you'd finish your session at the end of the day, you drive home, you might have the kids, the husband, the wife, do something in the evening, parents, friends, etc. Go to sleep, get up, do the same thing, and then you go back to work. And then you're expected to remember what you've learned the next day and also apply that. Whereas actually interactive online learning chunks about 2 hours, and you literally back into your work after following what you've learned in the interactive sessions. So you're more likely to apply something straight away because it's fresh in your mind. So we see the transference and application actually really increase in that space as well. I've had a question. Thanks for the interactive sharing, Erica. Do you need a subscription or create an account before accessing Jamboard? If you've accessed Google before, no, it's part of the Google suite. So you literally just need to Google it. If you haven't logged into Google before, it might ask you to log in and create, an account, but it's not going to ask you for your credit cards or anything like that. It's absolutely free for you to use. Kate says you've mentioned polls. How do they work? Thanks, Kate. So you've got a polls functionality within Zoom already. So you can set up a poll in the back end of Zoom, and then a poll will pop up on your screen and you can ask people questions, and single choice, multiple choice, etc. Or if you go to polleverywhere.com or menti.com, you can create them separate and use them with any virtual platform as well, completely free of charge. Lee asks, are there paid for platforms which are good for virtual classrooms? Absolutely, Lee. So your virtual classroom platform, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Adobe Connect, WebEx Training Center, etc., typically will be a paid for platform. Teams you tend to get in your Office 365 package anyway, because you've paid for that. And actually Teams are really starting to wake up in terms of functionality and being a bit left behind by Zoom that's been the disruptor over COVID. But Zoom, $11.99 a month, and you get whole functionality. You can be online as long as you want. When we start getting into the more sophisticated platforms like WebEx Training Center or Adobe Connect, they get a bit pricey, about 60 quid a month. But actually, I would argue you can do what you need to do on Zoom just as much as you could do on Adobe Connect or WebEx. So Zoom's been a real disruptor in the market. I know there's some PR issues around it. A couple of IT teams are a little bit scared of it sometimes. But actually, ironically, Zoom's probably one of the most secure platforms because of their response to some of the PR that happened before lockdown. So Linda asks, I'm assuming that the options you mentioned on Zoom are only available if you have the account rather than the free version. So great question, Linda. So during lockdown, actually Zoom were giving everybody everything, particularly educational establishments. So if you had a college, university or a school email address, they gave it to you for free. What they've started to do now, which is what you'd expect, is start to rein that back. So you can have a basic account with Zoom with most of the functionality. I don't think you've got polls on the free account anymore, but it does cut you off at 40 minutes. So obviously you don't want to be logging learners back on every 40 minutes because that could be quite disruptive for their experience. But again, 150 quid a year Zoom is. It's actually from a training environment online, it's very, very accessible. And most of my client work is through Zoom because I tend to talk them out of using Teams. Because Teams for me isn't quite there yet. But, you know, actually with Teams, you could use something like Jamboard as well. So if that's your go-to, then there's nothing wrong with that as well. So some really good questions coming through there. Great. Sarah, I think that's my geeking out around Jamboard and virtual classrooms and all of that, if that's okay. But guys, feel free to continue looking at the Jamboard. I will leave it there on my account for you to log into at any point. The link is free. You can't do any damage. So feel free if you want to show other people in the organisation or go back to it. That link is there for you as well.
So you're not off the hook just yet, Erica. So I've been on some of your workshops when you've talked about making that content really interactive and engaging. Yep. So what do's and don'ts have you got when it? So I know you've talked around pictures, your presentation, not to talk over things. So can you just give us an overview, like the Erica Farmer do's and don'ts when it comes to virtual classrooms, please?
Thank you. And Lee's just asked the same. So Lee, this is what I do as a job. This is my business model. I've probably worked with about 250 trainers, HR consultants, heads of L&D, talent directors over lockdown to not just get their teams online, but delivering and designing, which is the key point, your design methodology in the right space. So you're engaging, interactive and doing the best practice that you need to do online. So top tips, one learning outcome per slide. One learning outcome per slide. And actually that starts to drive more slides rather than fewer slides. But it's not death by PowerPoint. Because death by PowerPoint is when you've got a bunch of slides with a load of text on and you switch people off. Slides in the online space need to be graphic and visual. And that's why we say one learning outcome per slide, because you're moving through the slides at quite a pace when you're online and you're telling a story, you're taking people on that journey. And by moving the graphics and moving the slides, you're helping them to consider the conversation and the learning that's happening. It's more interactive because you're changing the graphics quite quickly and it's quite inspiring as well. So we know a picture tells 1,000 words. So one learning outcome per slide. Second top tip, I would say is, gosh, there's so many to share. Interact every 3 to 5 minutes. We've kind of talked about that already because, you know, concentration spans, you're competing against distractions like emails, pets, children, partners, systems, phones, tablets, TVs. So you need to work hard to keep people engaged. And a lot of that is around contracting up front. So I send out a little 2-minute video as part of my joining instructions, which basically says, this is what I expect from you, and this is what you can expect from me. This is what Zoom looks like, and this is what the experience will be for you. because people still rock up thinking it's going to be a passive webinar and they're not going to be asked to do anything. They're not going to be asked to reflect, do a Jamboard, whatever it might be, put some stuff in the chat, etc. Tip number 3, diversity of interaction. So I know a lot of online trainers at the moment will run a 2-hour session. They'll interact every 3 to 5 minutes, but their interaction is, in the chat box, put this, in the chat box, put this, in the chat box, and it just gets boring, and actually people will switch off. And what then happens is you get some people who stay engaged, some people who stay disengaged, and the people that say disengaged will type things like, same as what Lisa said, same as above, because they start to get bored, you know. And actually, you know, we've popped all these trainers and consultants and tutors online at the beginning of lockdown. They said, right, crack on. But it's a very, very different skill set and mindset. You know, so it's about being really confident with the tech, but also it's not just the tech, it's the tech and the interaction and the engagement. So that's what the beauty of this is. And if you do get this right, particularly from a visual perspective, and there's research that backs this up, you can increase recall up to 65% just through your design methodology, because people will remember things and start to transfer from short-term to long-term memory, and they're more likely to do stuff about it. So I could keep going, Sarah, but I'm not. I'm not going to, because I know we're aware of time and stuff. So.
No, it's brilliant. And I think one thing that I learned from you was about the images as well. So any images that are used, like Google them, and you use the like permission to use again as well on that license as well. So just sort of be careful of that.
Absolutely. People tend to go to Google Images, they'll stick a picture in and say, right, I love that. But you don't know whether actually you might get in trouble because of copyright. That image is owned by an organization. You know, you could Google image a pug, picture of a pug comes up. You can see I like pugs. And actually that pug might be owned by an insurance company because it's part of their advertising. So before you know it, particularly if you're commercial training or funded training, you could get in trouble for that. So using things like unsplash.com, Pexels, Pexels.com, and Pixabay, Pixabay.com, and I'll stick these in the chat in a minute. You know, royalty-free stock footage, images and videos. You're not going to get in trouble for using really high resolution. You can blow them up on your screens. They look amazing. So why would you go to Google Images and risk it actually when you've got some other resources that you could be using?
Yeah, brilliant. And the only other thing to sort of ask you, Erica, is can you talk us through your qualifications?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So I am a certified and accredited online facilitator. So I work with the Learning and Performance Institute, who are like our best practice governing body really in L&D, and I actually facilitate their certificate in online facilitation. So that's a 25-hour learning program that certifies people to be online learning facilitators. So if anybody is interested in that, do let me know. I run private work and in-house courses as well. So, you know, I can work, just like we did with Lisa, we can work with the groups of trainers and tutors, identify the capability and level, and make sure we take them on that journey so they have the skill set, but more importantly, it's a mindset shift. And there's hundreds and thousands of trainers out there in the market who are now virtual facilitators, right? Everybody's now a virtual trainer. I guess my differentiator is I'm qualified. I deliver it on behalf of our governing body, and I've been doing this since 2012, actually, when I was running interactive webinars at LV, Liverpool, Victoria, when we were joining up underwriters and financial advisors across the country. So yeah, I guess it's kind of that, what's your quality, what's your benchmark, what's you, as HRDs, HR managers, decision makers, budget holders, how do you know that the quality of your learning is where it needs to be? Or is it trainers just sat talking on Teams and Zoom and not really doing any interaction and things like that?
Yeah, brilliant. That's great. Thank you. And just to sort of rewind, say, for instance, Lisa got in touch with you. How did you sort of find out the actual needs of the organisation? And like you said, everything's been classroom. So what's that progress from you looking at what they've delivered to classroom to doing that, like you said, that methodology to actually delivering it online? So talk me through sort of how you partnered with Lisa and what that looked like.
Yeah, so obviously understanding from Lisa what her vision was for success and what that looks like was really important. And Lisa's got high standards, and rightly so. So she needed someone who could understand that and translate that. So, and that's where obviously the accreditation comes in, because that's reassuring for stakeholders to know there's already a certain level of quality there. But actually, spending lots of time with Heather, who's the head of curriculum. Heather was very clear to me what the expectation was, where the individuals were. We had lots and lots of conversations. You know, with clients, I'll look at things like recording of current delivery. And that's a really, really good understanding, and that's your needs analysis right there as well. What's currently being delivered, and actually to understand, you know, what the real pain points are. To, you know, what is the impact of doing this or the impact of not doing this? What's the impact of throwing you guys online and actually letting them crack on? If you've got key performance indicators like learner progress, learner achievement, qualifications, actually that's a really important part of the business model. So understanding that from a vision and strategy perspective, but actually knowing the level and the capability of the guys that you're working with, you know, spending time understanding that, just getting them used to the technology to start with. And then, like we said, we had a series of modules that then built that up in terms of, you know, so we've looked at functionality engagement, we're okay with that, go away and do something with it, give me your thoughts. We're now going to look at design, go away and do something with it. Next week, we're looking at actually really dialing up, you know, we've done this stuff now, we know how to do this, how can we make it even better? So that session will introduce lots of different new tools for them, so they feel more engaged and excited on their journey for online learning, because there's a lot of trainers and teachers and tutors out there that are still very nervous about this. So in our space as a trainer facilitator role, we need to empathise and understand that as well, because it's still new for lots of people.
Yeah, brilliant. And Erica, can you talk us through, sort of, you've done work 20 years in the corporate world in L&D. Can you talk us through sort of what that looked like, and any examples of any frustrations that you might have had? Because obviously you're great in this role of, like, companies might not be at that time as forward thinking as maybe of what you were.
Yeah, and I remember back in the days of working in corporate, so I'm very lucky to have a career that's, you know, I've been in British Gas, Virgin, Specsavers, Liverpool Victoria, worked in the welfare to work section with Working Links, that subcontracted Job Centre Plus. So there are lots of different industries and very similar challenges. So stakeholder, and Lisa talked about this earlier, stakeholder buy-in to digital learning, it's number one in terms of getting it over the line, exactly what Lisa was saying. And I found that in the corporate world as well as my current role as well. So, you know, you're kind of really understanding the pain points and really understanding what's important to people is just as important in a consultant role than it is to the in-house partnering and head of roles that I had back then. But I think, you know, it's an interesting time, particularly at the moment, because what it probably took me and various other L&D teams maybe 5-6 years to get stakeholders to truly understand the benefits of digital learning, the cost saving, the quality that can be done, actually has probably taken us 5 months over COVID, hasn't it? So, lots of work that I've done: head of roles, partner roles, design roles, delivery roles. I ran a big apprenticeship schemes. British Gas, we were a provider, and we had 1,500 apprentices on programme, engineers, customer service, management, team leaders. So yeah, a real vast career, but yeah, it has taken me to where I am now in terms of Welcome to Learning Limited. So it's all very exciting.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much then, Erica. So you can take a break now, Erica. Lisa, if we can just come back to you around that stakeholder engagement and how you measured the impact, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so I mean, like Erica's just said, I think stakeholder engagement is probably one of the most important skills that in HR you can have for any project that you're doing. One particular thing that Erica said I want to pick up on, which is IT departments that are trying to go to Teams instead of Zoom, and we had that issue. So at the start of lockdown, the IT department said, oh no, we've paid for Teams, it's part of 365, everybody must use Teams. And obviously Teams was absolutely terrible at the start of lockdown because it didn't expect to have, you know, the amount of users that it had, it didn't have the capabilities. So those influencing skills were vital to even start using Zoom as a platform. And exactly as Erica said, you need to find those pain points. You need to find, you know, basic stakeholder management. You need to find out what is keeping those people awake at night, what is their problem, and offer them a solution. So with the IT team, it was, you know, look, we can use Teams if that's really what you want to do, and we'll all support that. But every single time that we're trying to deliver a lesson, there's going to be quality issues. You're going to have to resource this. You know, so if there's problems and it hasn't got the capability, you know, you're then going to have to resource this. And they were busy enough that they said, okay, fine, use Zoom then. So that kind of solved that problem. But yeah, and then other stakeholders that needed to be involved. we had to justify the business case to use Erica and to invest in that training. So obviously there was a cost attached. We did have to kind of via money that wasn't spent in another budget over to make sure that we invested in this area. But, you know, the risk if we didn't, and, you know, in our business, we do tend to take a risk approach to things. So the risk if we didn't was that we would not deliver our courses, we would lose our students, and our funding would be clawed back at the end of the year. So the risks outweighed the cost involved. And actually, when you put it like that and you put it in a cost benefit analysis, you can soon see the return on investment, which I think is one of the most important things when you're looking at a training program or a learning and development program, is really trying to articulate well the return on investment that you're going to get from that. So yeah, impact. Again, I mean, it all ties in really with that return on investment piece. So we've got the KPIs, so the amount of students that passed our access course. Luckily, 100% of them passed and got university places. So yeah, I mean, that was such a win when the college had just had to close overnight like this. And yeah, really fab that our tutor team were able to do that. So you've got those cold hard KPI statistics, but then I think one of the difficulties in HR is, you know, a lot of the kind of informal benefits of things, but maybe we're not very good sometimes at collecting and articulating those in a cold, hard way. So I'm now doing our end of year HR report, a little bit late, but one of the things that I'll be doing when I get to the L&D section is articulating through some case studies and some qualitative analysis. So just talking to people and just saying, what impact did it have? Already the head of curriculum actually said to me when I told her I was doing this webinar, she said, do you know what, I don't think that we could have done it without Erica. She said, I actually don't think we could have pulled off what we did without Erica being involved. So, you know, I will literally quote that in my end of year HR report. And, you know, statements like that, you don't necessarily need those cold hard stats all the time. I think sometimes, you know, statements like that have a better impact. So yeah, in terms of impact, I'd say there's the two pieces there really, the kind of cold hard statistics and the informal, you know, telling a story.
Brilliant. And was there a time that you were they were out of the depth, it wasn't like on track or anything like that? So from a lessons learned, looking back, is there anything that you think that in hindsight is a great thing?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say that I think we did really well at the college was, and one thing that we have in my HR strategy is that we try to make the environment a safe place to take risks. And I think that is absolutely vital when you're talking about new technology, because if people feel there's a blame culture, or if they feel that they can't make it, you know, I mean, for instance, I ran an all-staff meeting for 60 people quite soon after lockdown with Zoom using Erica's training, you know, and bits of it didn't go to plan and bits of it, you know, were very, very difficult. There's one very funny thing on Zoom, which is that if you're sharing a video, you have to make sure the sound is activated, and you can't do it before the session, you have to do it before you play the video. And that bit always catches me out. So when we were delivering to like Irwin Mitchell and an organisation called Sahili, you know, I just said, oh, you know, we're all new, we're all learning this, you know, and actually it's quite nice for people, I think, to see you able to make mistakes and not freak out. It's probably the number one thing that people will worry about when they're going, you know, to online delivery or using new technology. But it's really important to just, you know, have that culture up front where it's like, look, it's great if you make a mistake because everybody there can see that you've done it and that it's fine. Because otherwise, how are you ever going to get innovation? People will be so scared they won't do anything. You know, and innovation is a main strand of our strategy. So yeah, I think that's one of the things we did really well. Sorry, my cat keeps making an appearance, by the way. Hello. One of the things that in hindsight, I think lessons learned wise, is I think we could have organised it a bit better because it kind of grew bigger than itself. So I think if we'd have planned it as a whole cross-college approach to start with, we could have probably just organised it slightly better. But, you know, equally, it picked up pace and I was really pleased with that, and I was really pleased that everybody came on board and got involved. So yeah, I think, and probably the impact measures, which is after every project, it's always exactly the same. We should have got better impact measures so that we could, you know, go for an L&D award. Yeah, and when the CIPD awards come around next year, it's great if you've got the impact measures at the start, you've collected them throughout, and you've got all that data, you know, to put forward to either make a case for future spend, to get awards, you know, or just to kind of justify what you've been doing for the last 6 months.
Yeah, brilliant as well. But we never would have thought that this would have been the way of the world anyway. So it probably was just that like short-term fix. But like we're saying now, it's not. It's here to stay. So how do we make sure it is fit for purpose? So I think for anyone that's on the call today or listening in, it is about that. Where are you starting and what impact do you want to have? And is the supplier that you're going to use accredited and qualified? So that's why I partner closely with Erica, because I feel like she is the best at what she does and in the industry.
Yeah, I was going to mention actually, so we're accredited on a number of different fronts as well. You know, we've got Investors in People Gold, and we're going for Platinum next time. We've won awards with Investors in People as well, and we are also quite at the forefront of equality, diversity, inclusion. We've got kind of matrix accreditations and other things like that, so it was really important that we had somebody that you know, was able to bring that quality and that understood those different considerations. You know, particularly our students are about 50% from ethnically diverse backgrounds. You know, we teach language to asylum seekers, language skills for asylum seekers, for instance. So having somebody that really understands that, yeah, that was non-negotiable really for us.
Yeah, brilliant. And Erica, no pressure, but you did deliver, so thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Lisa and the team, for being so supportive, so open. That, you know, it was nice to work with an organisation that were just really open to kind of saying, let's come together and do this in a collaborative way. You know, I wasn't an order taker, you know, which typically L&D people might find themselves in that space, particularly in a supplier relationship. Didn't feel like that at all. I felt like a trusted advisor and a partner and part of the Fircroft team. So that was really important for me and my values as well.
Oh, brilliant. That's great to hear. So we've got about 5 minutes left of the session. So feel free to pop any questions to Lisa and Erica in the chat box. So thank you for your feedback as well, Lee, on there as well. Best webinar been on during lockdown. Well, Lee, I've been inviting you since March, so what can I say? Better late than never.
I tell you what, Lee, you've not seen anything yet.
But no, Lee, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I know, Lee, you work in L&D, so it's like sad to see the L&D as well. It is always the first budget to go, and it just breaks my heart. So if we can bring this to life and, like you said, measure those impacts along the way as well, like even better for the profession as well. And like you said, it's not the sort of the second class cousin either, is it? So no, that's fab. So 5 minutes left then, guys. So thanks, Erica, for sharing your details. So next steps then, so obviously I've been blown away by the board you've shared today. So what do you think's next for this virtual classroom, virtual learning world? What are you sort of seeing and hearing?
Is that to me, Sarah?
Yeah, Erica, like what are you hearing in the industry, because you're sort of at the front of it?
Yeah, I think people recognise, or are starting to recognise, the art of the possible now. They're definitely recognising that it's a core L&D stream and channel. Perhaps sort of more of a blended approach. I think there's always going to be a place for face-to-face. It's going to look probably quite different in the future. So I think people, this digital online virtual space is still early on in its journey. And actually what we're seeing now, and the conversations I'm having, which are, you know, quite sophisticated conversations, is how do we have that all in one package that talks to Slack, that talks to Asana, that talks to our project management software, our water cooler software, our learning management, our HR and talent management planning units and online systems. So actually, from a user experience, you know, we talk about single sign-on, you know, from a learner experience, it shouldn't matter how I'm accessing my learning. It should just feel really comfortable and experiential. So, you know, I'm starting to get approached by organisations to say, how do we, you know, make sure our this talks to this talks to that. So that's definitely, I think, the next step. It doesn't feel segregated and different. It doesn't feel like learning. It just feels like a good experience. We almost want the learning tag to go away, don't we? So Yeah, so I think there's lots of techie tools, Linda. There's a ton of them, and just things like the rotational interactive whiteboards are a good place to get started, really. So and what I would say as well is if you're wanting to do something in this space, have a play and have a go. But how much budget have you got and how much time have you got? That's the question, really, because you could spend the next 6 months figuring it out, or you could do what Lisa did and accelerate the process and bringing somebody who's a real expert in this area. So I guess it's your time over quality over budget matrix, isn't it, of where your important and urgent is, really. So
yeah, I'd say a couple of things that that are in our L&D strategy. I think one thing that virtual learning and the use of tech allows you to do is reach a lot of people. So some of the very basic training that I think you'd have had to do face-to-face previously, you can record, you can do it as a podcast. I think micro learning is one thing I really want to get right for our organisation, because I know that's how a lot of people naturally learn now. So you'll do, you'll read a LinkedIn article in your 5-minute lunch break, you'll read a Guardian article in the evening, you listen to a podcast in the car once a week, all these little things. I think any L&D strategy has got to kind of look at what's right for the situation and how technology can really support that. There was a question in there just about impact measures, and I know we're just coming to the end now, but very briefly, we do that quite differently for every different course. So for students, it would be kind of student feedback, there'd be observations, we do virtual walkthroughs. So different senior leaders might pop up in a virtual lesson and do like an observation process. If we're delivering it to staff, we do the feedback from that, but then we've got an employee voice group, so we take the qualitative feedback from that. We do an engagement survey once a year, which specifically asks about L&D. So there's lots of different ways that we do it. I don't think there's just kind of one way to do it. I think there's, what is it, Erica? What's that? L&D, what is it? The Kolb scale, is it? So there's lots of,
yeah,
you know what I mean? There's a breakdown, isn't there, of all the ways you can measure L&D?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different
Kirkpatrick,
that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's not just one way, but
Yeah.
you need to look at what's right, really, for the context.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And there's a good question here around are we seeing people's digital skills and ICT skills increase because they're now learning online? And actually people are starting to not just get to use Zoom, but start to get to use Office 365 and email, even little things like snipping tool, which people don't realize are in the Microsoft package, where you can take a little snip, a screen print of something that's on a slide or whatever. We use that in interactive learning. Take a little snip of this emoticon and paste it and tell us how you're feeling, and just things like that. So yeah, it's absolutely supporting digital skills, which is going to be a massive thing for the government coming out, particularly in the apprenticeship and funded learning space. There's new digital qualifications coming out, so really kind of dialing up that ICT skill set that's required for people as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah, better than print screen, Jitendra says. I agree, Jitendra.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Lisa and Erica, for today's session. I've really enjoyed it, and like Kate's just said, I'm really excited now to put the learning into practice. So watch this space for next week's webinar. So on that, we are going to be talking about global HR in a global context. So we've got Michael Butler, who I've worked with this time last year when we did the first Birmingham event. So now we're going to be online, so looking at across the seas and how HR is interpreted in different countries and cultures. So again, all the sessions are at 10:30, so book on for free via Eventbrite. If you are on the lookout for a new role as well, we've got a job support webinar that's at 10:30 on a Monday. And if you are in a role and you're looking to gain some peer support, as we know, HR can be a lonely place. So we're offering you a place that you can just offload, like I said, gain that peer support, and that's on a Wednesday at 10:30. So thank you again for joining us today. And again, thanks Erica and Lisa, I've really enjoyed it, so thank you very much. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, take care. Thank you very much. Thanks guys, appreciate it.